We're live. Go ahead.
Okay, well, good afternoon, evening, everybody, wherever you are. It's my privilege and pleasure to be participating in this coronavirus-induced encounter electronically. And I am so happy to be here with you. And I've never done one of these before, so we're learning together how to interact. And my preference is to have as much interaction as possible and discussion. And Ethan, you all know, I would imagine, has agreed to help be the meeting manager with me for me to help transact the conversation and going through the learning that I would like to take us through this afternoon. And so so that having been said, I can just sort of now begin with what I have in mind to do for this series, which is called Perasha de la Semana. So Ethan, if you can show the blue cover for people to look at if you have not yet seen it. The text. This is a discussion on the Perasha, the weekly Perasha, and we're using as the text this book published by Mr. Yehuda Tzvi, Sobre la Perasha de la Semana, Semana por Semana. And Mr. Tzvi is a very interesting person. He has a long history of being involved with Ladino in every way, shape, and form. And he has been one of the moderators earlier on when it was first starting Ladino Comunidad. And what he did was, as part of his job, he would share different divrei Torah about the Perasha of each week on the Ladino Comunidad. And then over the years, he gathered them together and he published this book that has, for every Perasha, he has 1, 2, 3, or 4 different divrei Torah that he had contributed to Ladino Comunidad and other places to get to talk about the Perasha on the week. Ethan, if you can show the prefacio. And part of the reason that I'm interested in sharing this is because he has some not that one, the next one, sorry. Is that he has it's in Ladino, and so it gives us a chance, a little practice to read and learn in Ladino. I'm not so fluent in Ladino, but this is some learning experience for me. And also he has some pretty interesting selection, the questions that he asks and the commentators that he shares with us and his own original ideas I found very interesting. So in the preface of this book, you can see this introduction by Moshe Shaul, who's the vice president of the National Authority of Ladino in Israel. And in this page, he gives the background and understanding of what Mr. Tzvi has done and how it is one of the unexpected but corollary advantages of Ladino Comunidad. So I'm not sure if anybody and everybody who is on the call knows about Ladino Comunidad. If you do, then that's good. This is going back all the way to the beginning of over 20 years. And if you're not, then separately, I would be glad to give you the information of how you can subscribe if you're interested in following Ladino Comunidad. So I don't see the other people here. If there is anybody who is interested in knowing more about Ladino Comunidad, please please let me know somehow, and we can go through this page just like to get the background. And so, la creación de Ladino Comunidad, el foro de Internet de conversaciones en Ladino, ya tuvo unos cuantos resultados muy positivos para el futuro de nuestra lengua. The many positive results have come out of the creation of Ladino Comunidad. Entre ellos, la puja muy apreciable en el número de personas que participan a este foro, no solo con cortos mensajes. One of the interesting things is the number of people who have subscribed, and it's not just a large number, but it's also covering a wide sweep of the area of the world, all over the place. And they're not just having small messages, sino que también con cuentos, recuerdos de sus vidas, poemas y más, that they're coming and contributing memories, both of their of food, of sayings, of their growing up, and also contributing poetry, and contribuyendo así al esfuerzo que es hecho en diversas partes del mundo para un renovamiento de la creación literaria en ladino. That it's not something not less than contributing to a redefinition, a revival of a new form of Ladino literature that is coming from all over the world. And Mr. Tzav has been a participant in that from the beginning, and he's created this commentaries, like I said before, La Perasha de la Semana, and he has given us and captured what we have lost. In the second paragraph, the third line from the bottom, renovando en una cierta manera la tradición que darshar en ladino sobre temas de la religión judía. That his contribution is to come up with a new way of the tradition of having a derasha, of explaining different parts of our religion in terms that are illustrative of through people talking, or people what they say, or how we understand the different parts of the source texts, and he did this in such a way en el curso de las oraciones que eran hechas en nuestras calles, en las tardes o en días de Shabbat y fiesta. He has taken what has historically been done through speeches or conversations that took place in our calls, on our synagogues, in the afternoons, or on the day of Shabbat or on holidays. And he's presented this, and unfortunately, this is a lost art. There are almost no synagogues in the world where there are derashot in Ladino. And so with this book, gathering together all of his contributions to Ladino Comunidad, he is helping us to hold on to this tradition and remember some of the substance. And that's the reason that the National Authority of Ladino has agreed to publish this collection of his articles, and so that we not only will have it be something for an academic exercise, but also for popular understanding and benefit. And another thing that I want to offer is I have some books. He has more himself, but if anybody is interested in as we go on with these conversations, getting a copy of Sobre la Perasha de la Semana from Mr. Tzav, we'll be happy to see that you get that. Okay, so moving back to the previous page, the frontis page, that would be great. So, and I don't know how to let people come in make comments, and I'm happy to do that. If there is someone who has any questions of what we talked about until now or comments, please let's take a moment to give you a chance to okay. Now, see this comment of I would definitely like to get a copy. Ethan, is there a record of that somewhere, or do I have to write that down?
Yes, Al, you'll be able to get that information.
Okay.
We'll be able to make sure we get that information to you.
Okay, so that person is knowing Zoom better than I am. He's not having to come and talk with the audio, but he can also chat. There is this option of having a chat that and Ethan tells me, Baruch Hashem, we'll get a chance to capture that and have that there. So that will be working very well for us. So what I wanted to show you here in this frontispiece page, sobre la Perasha de la Semana, Semana por Semana, Yehuda Tzvi, that's who he is. And on the bottom right, you get to see when it was done, printed in Israel, and what year it was, and what the telephone number is, and all of that. But the fifth line is a line in Hebrew. And Mr. Hatzvi here is carrying on another time-honored tradition of authors of Judaica. When they want to date the book, they will use not just the year, but rather what they will do is they will have some kind of a textual reference, some verse or some phrase from Tanakh usually, or other rabbinic sources that has a meaning on its own. And then in that verse, they will find the year of publication, because as you may know, every letter in the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical equivalent. And so Aleph 1, Bet 2, etc. The Yud is 10, Kuf is 100, and then Rei, Shin, and Taf are 200, 300, and 400. So those digits, those letters of the alphabet correspond to those numerical digits. And what they do is they'll take a pasuk and they will find the letters in that pasuk which will add up to the year of publication. So what Mr. Hatzvi has done here is the first word, for those of you who read Hebrew, especially not vocalized, Shenat, the year of, and then it says Elohe Teshuati Teranen Leshoni Tzidkatecha. And it says, the God of my salvation, my tongue, my mouth will praise your righteousness. So that pasuk is something that reflects Mr. Hatzvi's goal and desire in this book, the Perasha de la Semana, and then the last letter, the last three letters of that line, it's Lamed, Pei, apostrophe, Kuf. And there are two different ways to count and list years in the Hebrew year counting scheme. On the bottom right, you can find, it says, where Nitpas Beretz Yisrael, it's printed in the land of Israel, Taf Shin Ayin Aleph, which corresponds to the year, we say, 2011. Okay, Taf Shin Ayin Aleph. Taf is 400, Shin is 300, as I said, Ayin is 70, and Aleph is 1. So it's 771. So how, you may ask, do I get from the year what does the year 771 mean altogether? And how do I get from the year 771 to corresponding to the year 2011? Well, we call this year, we count the years traditionally from the traditional creation of the world, and it's 5,780 is what the year that we're in right now. And this was done 9 years ago. It's 5,771, which corresponds to the year 2011. Okay, so what Mr. Hatzvi has said on the right there, or on the left, is the counting according to the number of hundreds, tens, and units. He assumes everybody knows we're in the 6th millennium. We're in the year 5,000 and something. And so the only thing we need to know to count the Hebrew year that will then correspond, we can figure out how it corresponds to the Julian, not the Julian, who's the other guy? But it's not
Gregorian.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I forgot Pope Gregory. Yes, the Gregorian is by adding 5,000 for it, first of all, and then he takes this pasuk Elokei Teshuati Teranen Leshonei Tzidkatecha, and he puts an asterisk over the letters that he wants to have that will add up to what we'll know what year it is. Aleph in the first word, and then Tav, Shin, Ayin in the second word. And so here he made it easy for us because it corresponds, Tav, Shin, Ayin, Aleph. And that corresponds to what we say is the years, Tav, Shin, Ayin, Aleph. But many times people will use more complicated arithmetic, and they can have 3 or 4 or 10 letters indicated, and you have to add them all up and see what year it is. And it's a very interesting tradition and practice. And I can't say I know the history of it, but it's prevalent. Everybody, among the Sfaradim especially, but among all Jewish people, to have that year be indicated in a way that reflects the theme or the meaning or the intent of the book that's being dated. It's a very interesting practice that we have. Okay, so one of the things that as we get to know each other and have these conversations together, I try to keep sort of a main theme and idea of what it is I'm trying to do, but I also will take sidebars and get off to tangents like I just did now for saying how to date the years of the books and why they use this method. But now we are ready to go into the study of the Perasha de la Semana. And the Perasha that we are getting ready to be reading this coming Shabbat by ourselves and or with whomever, wherever we are, it is the second Perasha in the book of Vayikra, the 5 books of the Torah that we have on an annual cycle. Bereshit, Genesis is the first one, Shemot is the second, Vayikra, Leviticus is the third, and then Bamidbar and Devarim, number 4 and 5. We are just last Shabbat, we began reading the 3rd book, and that is the name of the first Perasha of Vayikra is Vayikra, and now we're moving on to the 2nd Perasha of Vayikra. So, Ethan, will you then now turn to the first book, or the first page, page 127, if you don't have it, it's on Tzav. And so, all right. So here is the first page of the second page of Mr. Hatzavi's. It's the second Derashah, was the one that I chose to share with us all today. And what he does is he'll pick a particular turn of phrase or a particular subject that interests him, and he will share what the text says. He will share questions that he has or other commentators have had that he will want to talk with us about, and then he will present it to us. So let me know through chats or whatever if this works best for you. What I will do is I will read a sentence, a paragraph in Ladino, and then we'll translate it, and we'll have some kind of additional comments for understanding or questions if anybody wants to ask either about what's talked about in the Perasha or of his commentary. And because I'm choosing this text, because it's in Ladino, that if there's some linguistic comment that someone wants to make, or some turn of phrase that it has, or some word that we're not quite used to, or you want to say, isn't there a different way of saying it where I'm familiar with, that's fine too. This class, in my mind, has two learning objectives. One is to get some understanding from Mr. Tzvi's point of view about the Perasha de la Semana. What is it we can learn on a weekly basis as we go through the cycle about the Torah reading from the Shabbat, number one, and number two, it's a Ladino text, and he's writing in 21st century Ladino, but he has a long history of his family and where he grew up, and pretty knowledgeable in Ladino, and it's something there for us to learn here as well, what the turn of phrase is, or what the way it's said, or something that we understand, or if we have any question about it. So, and like I said, if anybody has anything to comment or say, please, one way, raise your hand, and tell you want to speak, or put a chat group and let me know. So, if there is nothing that anybody wants to say now, let me go on to reading in the paragraph of this year's. He didn't date his years of when he wrote each one of these. It's very interesting, but it says in la Perasha de Tzav, in the second Perasha of the book of Vayikra, the Perasha of Tzav, continuea la Torah con las leyes de los korbanot. The Torah continues the discussion of the laws of sacrifices. Y el ritual en Bet HaMikdash, and its associated ritual in the Bet HaMikdash. And we know that when the Torah was written, there was talking about their journey in the desert, and they didn't have the temple that is in Jerusalem. They had the Mishkan, but the learning and the description of what the regimen was at the Bet HaMikdash is based on that text when it talks about what was done in the Mishkan. So when he writes El Ritual en Bet HaMikdash, that's because that's where it was used when the Israel got to the land of Israel and King Solomon built the Bet HaMikdash. Ajustando unos cuantos detalles más. In case we're not totally bored with, or not totally familiar with or understanding all the laws of the sacrifices in the ritual of Bet HaMikdash, in the Perasha of Tzav, it comes and gives us a few more details. Okay, and so he says specifically in Nuestra Perasha de Tzav, in our Perasha, Avlo Adonai a Moshe, when God spoke to Moses, he opened the subject in this Perasha with the following phrase: Encomenda a Aaron y a sus hijos. God told Moses, please command Aaron and his children of what to do. So that turn of phrase, which makes a lot of sense, is talking about the korbanot. He's talking about the Bet HaMikdash. Who was at work there? Who did the holy work in the Bet HaMikdash? It was Aaron and the Kohanim. So in the Perasha of Tzav that we're reading now, God told Moses, command Aaron and his children. However, he says, mientras que en la Perasha pasada, Vayikra, in last week's Perasha, the opening of the book of Leviticus, which talks about the sacrifices and the service in the temple, in the tabernacle, said, Disho a Moshe, God told Moshe, habla a los hijos de Israel. Speak to the children of Israel. So he's pointing out that when we're talking about Tzav, God is telling Moses to go and command Aaron and his sons what to do, which makes sense. But when it's talking and introducing the subject as a whole in the book of the Perasha Vayikra, God opens it up telling Moses to speak to the children of Israel. And he brings up that difference and asks us the following question. Todas las leyes que en las dos perashiot son guía clara y instrucciones a los Kohanim, sacerdotes. He says all of the laws in these two Perashiot are a clear guide and instructions to the Kohanim. And then is anybody familiar of using in Ladino the word sacerdotes as Kohanim? I've not seen that before, but that's an interesting term to follow. So anyway, he says it's a clear instruction to the Kohanim of what to do. Entonces, ¿qué necesidad hay por el pueblo a saber todos estos detalles técnicos? If that's the case, that this is the manual, a job manual for the Kohanim, how to do the sacrifices, how to provide the services and take care of the Holy Temple and the Mishkan, what necessity is there for the people to know all of these technical details? It's an interesting question. Now, it happens that it talks about what instigates a number of the sacrifices and the things that the Kohanim do. They're started by Jewish people. They want to bring a free will offering. They want to bring a thanks offering, a peace offering. They want to bring a sacrifice to get expiation, forgiveness for doing sins. So they're sort of starting the process, and there is a little bit that they have to worry about while they go and what they do. But his point is that by and large, everything that's talked about in the ritual for the Korbanot, most everything, and the service in the Beit HaMikdash has to do with the Kohanim. If that's the case, why does God open the book by saying, "Speak to the children of Israel"? What necessity is there for the whole entire Jewish people to know all these technical details? And here, Mr. Hatzavi is providing us not with what he's read in other places and other commentators, and we can talk about other reasons, but here he shares with us, la razón es, me parece. To me, the reason seems to be, por darnos a saber que no solo los Kohanim, sino cada uno y uno del pueblo tiene de sentirse responsable que el laboro sacro será ordenado y bien cumplido. It seems to me the reason is for give us to understand that while it's true that the implementers, the people who are charged with the job of sacrifices and care and services in the Beit HaMikdash are the Kohanim, the responsibility to make sure that the whole entire service takes place according to the details that have been specified, and they're in an orderly way and in a complete way. That responsibility rests with each and every Jew, the whole entire Jewish people, because the efficacy of service in the temple is not just for the Kohanim, it's for the whole entire Jewish people. So just don't delegate that responsibility and say, then you do what you do. We have to know what to do. And then Ethan has changed the page. And so we see that we have to know all of the details, and it's done completely, hasta la punta de la letra, to satisfy up until the letter of the law, that you have to know that the Kohanim, when they do this, they have to know that we are relying upon them to have an understanding and follow that they follow and do what it is that will make sure that we get the service is in accordance with what it's called for, and not something else. Why? Because the downside, and we know that the Kohanim, when they're doing their job, little mistakes can get you into a lot of trouble. The tightrope that you're walking on, with more holy and closer to divinity, you have to be much more careful. And so that applies in general to the Kohanim, the people who are doing the job. But I think what Mr. Hatzavi is saying, that they are agents, and that not only are they at risk of being in jeopardy if they don't follow the specific instructions, but then their whole service for us, that what we're depending on them to do for us, is also in jeopardy, and we will be missing out on what has to happen if they don't understand and follow the procedures that are called for. That is one major point that Mr. Tzav wants to share with us, that even though it's talking about sacrifices and temple service, the Torah goes to great detail to tell all of the Jewish people, because we are all dependent upon the Kohanim and the people who are charged with the job to get it right and understand, so that it's doing something, that the efficacy is positive for us, and that we're not in jeopardy, that we don't go, fall off the end of having something done wrong. So that's one point. Now moving to the next point he wants to talk with us. Muestra Perasha empieza con el pasuk que encomenda a Aaron y a sus hijos los Kohanim. Now he reminds us, says the first verse for this Perasha of Tzav is God telling Moses to go tell Aaron and his sons, the priests. And then he says, y se termina con el pasuk diciendo, and the end of the Perasha is with the following verse. Y hizo Aarón y sus hijos todas las cosas de Adonai que Adonai encomendó por mano de Moshe. And Aaron and his sons did all of that was commanded by God to Moses and told to Aaron and his sons. That what they got the message of what it is to do and how to do it, and Aaron and his sons did everything that God commanded them to do through Moses. And something just, so one interesting aspect of this is that the question of human creativity and the question versus following instructions and just not having a chance to express yourself in creative ways. One of the things that we see here is that in certain ways in the Jewish religion, there is a virtue to staying in line with what is prescribed. That there are times when, in order to fulfill what it is that we are asked to do, that it matters what we do, that the order, how it is, what we have in mind, and all of that kind of stuff. At the same time, though, there's times when creativity is valued, is called for. And one of the understandings that we try to reach is, when is it that my independence, that my creativity, my originality and ingenuity is an appropriate thing to do? Is it appropriate to apply it here or not? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it is. It's not the case that we say that the creativity is the end all and be all, and everything has to be individually stamped and understood my way. Nor is it the case that you have to toe the line and you just got to do it and say I'm in the right place and then move on and all that and have it be rote and have it be not full of meaning to us. There is this balance between understanding what and when to be following in the prescribed order and ritual, and there's a time when ingenuity and creativity is called for. And one of the things we're going to learn about next week is a tragic case of someone applying ingenuity and the two sons of Aaron. So that's a coming attractions for next week. But here, The end of this week's Perasha is Y hizo Aarón y sus hijos todas las cosas que Adonai encomendó por mano de Moshe. That to their credit, Aaron and his sons were given the recognition and credit for having followed through with all of the things that God commanded them through Moshe. And then Mr. Hatzvi, succinctly, he says, Lo dicho, hecho. What is said is what's done. I don't know if that's a common Ladino phrase, but it looks like it probably got it there. So that concludes Mr. Hatzvi's description and commentary on this week's Perasha of this one. There is about 3 or 4 pages more of it. But then one of the things he also does is when we read the weekly portion, we have following it the portion of Haftarah, which is if the Perasha de la Semana is based on the first of the 3 books of the Bible, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and it's split into as many pieces as we need in order to have an annual cycle to read it. At the same time, there were various reasons, we adopted a custom of taking readings from the prophets, the second section of the Bible, and we read that from that second section, coming from the prophets, subject matter having to do with the Perasha in one way or another. And so this week's Perasha is from the book of Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, and he tells us, Mr. Hatzvi says, that this Haftarah, which is found in the 7th chapter of the book of Yirmiyahu, empieza con palabras de ironía y reproches frente al pueblo. The Haftarah begins with some words that are that's like a satire. It's like telling the Jews to follow something, and you haven't done it, and you're gonna get yourselves in trouble because you're going and doing other things that I never commanded you to do. And so, what is the verse in Yirmiyahu that says that? Ansi dice Dios de Israel, Koamar Hashem. This is what God said. Añadid vuestras alzaciones sobre vuestros sacrificios y comed la carne. He says, look after what you're going to sacrifice, and save your money. Don't give me a sacrifice. Just eat the meat. Why? Why is he saying that? Porque no hablé con vuestros padres, ni nada les encomendí, tocante a la alzación y sacrificio, el día de que los saqué de la tierra de Egipto. He says, let me remind you about this relationship that we have been going on now. By now, it's the 900 years or something like that. 6, 7. Let me tell you something about this. When we started this relationship, I didn't speak to your forefathers a word, ni nada, nothing, did I command them about sacrifice and about offerings on that day when I took them out of the land of Egypt. So this is Jeremiah putting in perspective the services at the temple. And here he's saying they've gone a lot too far in the way of just formally going through the motions, and it's become a meaningless ritual, and furthermore, God through Jeremiah tells the Jews that you got things out of proportion here. You got things out of perspective. Just remember this. When I first revealed myself to your forefathers and had them come out of Egypt, which we're going to celebrate with Pesach in a week and a half, and which then led to the crossing of the Red Sea, then led to the revelation by God at Moses to Moses at Sinai. I didn't mention one word about sacrifice, about offerings, about this temple. And the day when I took you out of the land of Egypt, what I was interested in doing was something very, very different. And so Mr. Hatzvi says, por cierto, el profeta se refiere al día que se dio la ley en Monte de Sinai, that God for sure is talking about, that Jeremiah is talking about the day when God gave the law at Mount Sinai. And he paraphrases here, en los 10 mandamientos no se habla de nada por sacrificios o asaciones. Look at the 10 commandments. Show me where it says anything about sacrifices or about offerings or about a temple service. It's not there. In demás, furthermore, cuando si se habló por korbanot, como en nuestra Perasha, when the Torah does get around to talking about sacrifices, as for example in this Perasha, and here Mr. Hatzvi telling us this could be one of the hooks of why the rabbis chose to read this portion from the prophets in chapter 7 of Jeremiah and append it to the book, the Perasha of Tzav, because he says, when I did talk about the korbanot, like in this Perasha, son dadas a la voluntad de cada persona y a condición que de ninguna manera no son por reemplazar las mitzvot y las hechas buenas. He says, this is something that is he talks about it being a personal offering, but there are also, we know, are offerings, daily offerings and weekly offerings and monthly offerings and offerings during the holidays that were communal offerings. But the point that he's making here is that this sacrifice, whatever reason you want to do it, Thanksgiving or forgiveness or whatever, that was something that was a part of what the whole picture is. Never ever to replace, never ever to out-prioritize the accomplishment of the mitzvot or of doing good deeds one to another and in every way possible, because that was not the main thing. What the main thing is, que son nuestro deber, we have to do these hechas buenas en mitzvot por fallar gracia en ojos del Dios y de la gente. That our goal in this world is to do the mitzvot and good deeds to find favor in the eyes of God and our fellow human being, fellow men. That what we're doing here is concentrating on being members of society who are rooted in the values and the beliefs of our people that lead to having a relationship with God on a personal and a communal basis, and that relate to interpersonal human relationships. And Mr. Hatzvi here is pointing out that it's not just the relationship that we strive to achieve as we move through life is not only a vertical one between each of us and God, or even the Jewish people and God. It is as much, and God tells us this, it is as much having relationships that are well-founded and that are based on values and beliefs that we have for interpersonal relationship with our fellow man. And so that's what it's all about. And the issue of korbanot, sacrifices and temple service, that's important but it takes place in that context. That don't get your eyes off the ball of what's the most important thing to do, and what the game is all about. It's finding favor in the eyes of God and man through doing mitzvot and good deeds in every dimension that we have, vertically and horizontally. So then he says that this idea you can see also in the Haftarah, the chapter 7, verse 23. Así dice el pasuk, andad en todo el camino y vos encomendí para que vos vaya bien. In that, I'm going to read in the Hebrew that Mr. Hatzvi sort of quoted the last phrase. I want to read the Hebrew verse and talk about that, give a little bit more substance. Because I didn't talk to you about sacrifices and burning the meat and having it and all that. What I talked about, and when I took the Jews out of Egypt, is to say the following: Shimu bekoli, ve'ayiti lachem le'Elohim, ve'atem tiyu li le'am. Listen to my command, my voice, and you will be for me. I will be for you a God, your God, and you will be for me my nation. V'halachtem, and you will go b'chol haderech asher atzaveh etchem, in all of the pathway that I commanded you, and that includes the vertical, what I said, gracia y nosos del Dios, but the derech asher, b'chol haderech asher atzaveh etchem, the tzivui, the commandments we have are as much. If you look at the 10 commandments, the first stone is mostly vertical, and then the rest is all interpersonal. Has something to do with God in the middle too, with oaths and things like that, but it's all interpersonal. So halachtem b'chol haderech asher atzaveh etchem leman yitav lachem. That's where it's going to be to your benefit. That's where it's going to be good for you. And so this chastisement that Jeremiah was giving the Jewish people during his day, they had taken the service in the temple and turned it into something that it was never intended to turn into, and it became a higher priority than it ever was meant to be, and they had taken it to such a stage that was one of the main reasons that the first, that according to prophets, that the temples was destroyed. And so we have this Perasha talking about sacrifices and how what to do, and how we need, according to Mr. Hatzavi, that we need to be careful, that it matters. It's not just something the Kohanim do, and they have to know why they're doing it, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it, and make sure they're doing it in a way that benefits us, that doesn't turn into something that is negative. Don't let it get out of proportion. Do it right. And also understand its perspective and where it is and how it fits into Jewish life of following the mitzvot between man and God and between man and man. And that is what God is looking for us to continue to find favor in His eyes, in the eyes of our fellow men and fellow people. So that's what I wanted to say. I'm going about Perasha de la Semana, following Mr. Hatzavi's lead, and finding in here, through reading in his Ladino interpretation, and what we see is what we can be doing to take out of it. And so, Shabbat Shalom. It's a little bit early, but we're doing the Perasha, so we'll think in those terms. And I would appreciate if anybody has any questions, comments, or thoughts about what we've learned, and how we can help make this be something that's more that improves, that is as much value to you as it could be, either verbally or by chat, now or later. Thank you very much.
So anybody, if you have any questions, you can definitely unmute yourselves, or you can also write in the chat. You're welcome to that as well. I do have a question, Al.
Yes.
Do you think the use of Ladino, this is more of a linguistic question, do you think the use of Ladino is a hindrance to understanding the Perasha, or actually kind of highlights more, because the language itself is much more poetic in some ways than English or than other languages that might highlight the Perasha?
Well, I think I am sort of biased. And with Ethan, I have the Me'am Loez, which I'm sure all familiar with, was an encyclopedia work that was begun about 280 years ago, and it's a commentary on it was originally conceived to be a commentary on the whole Tanakh, all the 24 books of the Torah, and we have the explanations are, it's talking in Ladino, because he was talking to the people who didn't know Hebrew, couldn't go to the sources and find out, but there was something for them to see. It was not just a translation of the Tanakh, but it was also drawing on a very deep reservoir of understanding of the words of the Torah Shebaal Peh, of the rabbis from the Mishnaic and Talmudic times through the centuries and millennia to the middle of the 18th century when he lived. And I think that the vehicle of Ladino is to get an understanding for and appreciation of a lot of the understanding of Torah, the Tanakh, enhances it, because the language was, and I don't even want to go here into the religious wars about whether it's Judeo-Espanol or Judaismo or Ladino, or spoken or written or whatever. The essence of that expression, if it's a language or a jargon, written is different than spoken, there are differences for sure. At the same time, I think there's a common thread of expression that combines the experience of the people who were living at that time and having an understanding of the Jewish life, both in terms of written materials and also in terms of living experiential aspects that come into the language, and that you get to see a turn of phrase, you get to see and understand, which a lot of it I don't understand now because I don't live back then, but I think there is something to be gained by understanding Tanakh for sure through Ladino, because there's something. It's a vehicle that adds value. It's not just a medium; it's part of the message. I guess is a short way of saying otherwise long-winded answer to your question. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Anybody have anything to offer on that question? I think I would like to hear other people if you have some. Hi.
Hi, my name's Ariel, and I just joined at the end, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing. I hadn't read the entire Perasha, but I read the one for last week. I really enjoyed having the Ladino. Thought that was really special. You can't find that easily. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Feels like we're getting close to the end of our time. So again, this is something that Sekelo will do every week, And then I have my father's book. We can talk about, that's another story on Wednesday. But for this one, I'm happy to do this. And like I said, this is the first time for me, and I'm sure there's ways to improve it. So whenever ideas you have, or how you could, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was wondering, how does Mr. Hatzid's work relate to the Me'am Loez in its flavor and its content?
That's a very good question. I don't remember, in fact, explicitly seeing him talking about Me'am Loez very much, maybe a little bit, but that was, so in terms of a source text, I don't think it has necessarily any special place. But in terms of the style, a mí parece, right? This engagement with the texts and the permission. See, I was talking about being creative and not being creative. He's got, I think, this is something that is in the Ladino literature. You got the balance that we're rooted in the text. We have Chazal, we have what people have told us, how things are and what they mean and all of that. At the same time, within that context and with respect and with the qualification that this is me talking, that this seems to me, I think that character is, and Nathan, you can tell me you were hearing about from the Me'am Loez also, that character of being rooted in the text, in the commentary and understandings, at the same time having the opportunity, or taking the opportunity with respect to express a personal opinion, I think is the same. Thank you. Any other?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, have yourselves a wonderful week, and we enjoy our solitude together. We have I don't know, just on one, I'm sure you're all hearing interesting stories about how you get to having a seder. The one was says, Kadesh Urchatz, Karpas Urchatz, Urchatz. Yeah, between every step now you have to wash your hands. And then there was another person who read that they said they're not sure they're going to open up the door for Eliyahu this year because who knows where he's been. Did he take it at every place? So there's a lot of opportunity for us. We have to be creative this year for having this being, what I call it, being together in our separateness, right? That it's so antithetical to the Jewish response to tzarot and problems. You always close the ranks and come together and do it. And now the right response is for us to be separate, but we are going to still be together. Con bueno. Take care, everybody. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Remember, everybody, thank you so much for joining our first Sephardic Digital Academy class. Thank you, Zakabot Al. It was fantastic. Just to let you all know, this is only the first of many classes. We actually have 6 scheduled this week. Tomorrow we have 3 in the afternoon with Rabbi Nisiman Lekaveh, followed by Rabbi Daniel Hadar from Florida, and then Rabbi Daniel Buskila from California. And you can find all the information regarding our upcoming classes on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sephardic Brotherhood, as well as on our website shortly, sephardicbrotherhood.com. All this was streamed live on Facebook, and also you'll be able to find this all recorded on YouTube as well if you want to review. Okay?
Thank you.
I'll be fine now, don't worry. Take care, everyone. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.